Hey everybody. In class lately we've been talking a lot about proportions. Tonight we're going to talk about a specific type of proportion, which is percents, and in this case specifically we're going to be talking about the percent of change in a problem. So first let's just look at a regular percent problem. Kevin got a 32 out of 40 on his last math quiz. What was his percent? There's a bunch of different ways we could figure this out. One way is just to divide 32 by 40. Right? We have the part on top, and the whole on the bottom. So to divide that, we get 0.8 as a decimal, right? Nothing too crazy. So this is what 32 over 40 equals as a decimal. Now to turn it into a percent, we just move the decimal 2 places to the right. It's always 2 places to the right. And this missing space right here we can just fill in with the 0. So 0.80 becomes 80%. Okay, so that's one quick way to turn a fraction into a decimal and then into a percent. Sometimes, though, we want to find how much an amount changed as a percent. In this case, the VEX Robotics team had 44 students on it last year. This year, it has 55 students. What was the percent increase? Now, just from looking at these two numbers, going from 44 to 55, we knew it grew by 11 students. But that doesn't really tell us whether that's a big change or little change compared to how many students it started with. What can help us find that out is by finding the percent of change in these two numbers. Now, to find the percent of change, we always find the amount of increase over the original amount. So we know the amount of increase is 11. It went from 44 to 55. If we're ever trying to find this, we're not sure quite how to find the amount of increase, we can always just subtract these two numbers and that'll tell us how much it changed by. The original amount in this problem is 44 because that's what it started at. It went from 44 to 55. So the original amount is 44. So 11 divided by 44 gives us 0.25. So this is the decimal for how much this amount changed by, from going from 44 to 55. Now to find the percent, we just have to move the decimal over 2 spaces. And our percent of change is 25%. A 25% increase in the number of students. In example C, a store sells a pair of running shoes for $56, but they are now on sale for $49. What is the percent of decrease? So to find the percent of decrease, it's basically the same as finding the percent of increase. We just have to figure out how much it went down. What is the amount of decrease? And then divide that by the original amount. Now, just from looking at this problem, I know that the original amount was $56 because that's what the store normally sells them for. Now I need to find the amount of decrease. So it went from 56 down to 49. So if I subtract these two numbers, 56 minus 49, I get 7. It decreased by $7. When I divide these, I get a decimal. I get 0.125 as my decimal. Now to turn this into a percent, we do the same thing we did in the previous two problems. We move it over 2 spaces. It's always 2 spaces to go from a decimal to a percent. So in this case, our percent is going to be 12.5. So in this instance, it was a 12.5% decrease from the original price to the sale price. Here we have our last 3 examples, and in this case, there's no word problems. There's no context. All it tells us is an original amount and a new amount. And we want to identify if the change is an increase or a decrease and then find the percent of change. So if I'm looking at example 1 here, the original was 10, the new is 12. I know that this is an increase in the amount, going from 10 to 12. Now to find the percent of increase, first I need to know how much it went up by. Well, going from 10 to 12, that's an increase of 2, and we divide that by 10, the original amount. Remember, the original amount is always the number that goes on the bottom. 2 divided by 10 gives us 0.2, and if we move the decimal over 2 spaces, that gives us 20%. A A lot of people, when they see 0.2, they want to change that to 2% right away, but remember, 2 spaces in this empty space, we can always put a 0. So 0.2 always gives us 20%. In number 2, we are starting at 125 and we're going to 25. This is a decrease. That seems like a pretty big decrease. It's going down by a lot. So my original amount is 125. That goes in the denominator. And the numerator is the change. So it went from 125 to 25. That's a change of 100. It dropped by 100. Now when we divide these two, 100 divided by 125, we get 0.8 this time. We saw this in the first example, 0.8. When we change that to a percent, we move that over twice. We can put a 0 there. It gives us 80%. So that is a decrease of 80% from the original amount. In our third and final example, we're going to do the exact same thing. Now in this case, we have another decrease. It started at 250, it went down to 150. So we're going to write decrease right here so we know which way we're going. And now we need to set up our fraction, find our decimal, then find our percent. So 250, the original amount, in the denominator. And our change in this case, 250 minus 150, gives us 100. So when I do 100 divided by 250, that gives me 0.4. So just like we saw above, we move it over 2 places, that decimal. We can put a 0 in that empty space right there, and we get 40%. So this one is a decrease of 40%. All right, those are all of our examples for tonight. Go ahead and complete your notes, submit them through Canvas, and I will see you all in class. Have a good night.